We're on to our first panel discussion, so I'd like to welcome onto stage Joe Cullinane and Alex Hamilton. Joe is visiting us from the US, and we had a great old chat yesterday, so I know he's got loads to talk about on strategic artistry. Alex Hamilton, founder, startup, Kubicle. Don't make me sit in the middle and play tennis with the two of you, so two of you at least sit side by side. Okay. I'm going over to join them and ask them loads of questions. Before I do, Anya, thank you so much again for that. That was absolutely brilliant. Follow her on Twitter and get engaged. Thank you. Now on to my new role as interviewer.
Hello.
Oh, it's so much better from down here. Are you guys both on?
I don't know if we're
on. Are we on?
Are you on?
Am I on?
Oh, you're both
right,
on.
Beautiful.
We're on.
Okay, I was listening to the two of them whispering while I was sitting down there going, yeah, you know, I'm going to talk about this, or we're just going to have some fun. So these two think they're going to have a great old time. I have loads of tough questions for them.
Huh.
But I'm going to let you both start by introducing yourself. Alex, you've got a startup. This is your opportunity. Hit them with the joys of Kubicle in 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes, great.
In 2 minutes.
Cool. Hi everyone, I'm Alex. Good to be here today. So I'm a co-founder of a company called Kubicle. I think some of you are actually taking our training at the moment. We do online training for data analytics. So we train a lot of professional services firms and a lot of finance and commercial teams in large companies. We started out by training teams how to use Excel and do financial modeling. But we've now gone into products like Tableau, Ultrix, ClickSense, and really helping companies to make sense of the reams of data that they have available to them each and every day. So yeah, looking forward to telling you a lot about our company and what we've been up to over the last few years.
I'm Joe. We pronounce it Cullinane in America. I didn't discover I was pronouncing my name wrong till I moved here. I guess it's Cullinane or something like that. Anyway, I'm really happy to be here. I started my career in sales. I was with companies like Xerox and NCR. Then I got into enterprise software. And for the last few years, I've been teaching and mentoring and coaching, mostly with startups and mostly with people in technology companies. I've worked with Google Launchpad, and I work in an accelerator called GSV Labs, which stands for Global Silicon Valley. So we work with companies from all over the world, preparing them for the marketplace. I'm currently an adjunct professor here, and I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you guys both so much. So obviously, Joe, you've been working with startups. I benefited. He was looking for somewhere to find soup yesterday. I bumped into him outside. We introduced one another, and I had an hour of great chat on art, actually, and various other creative topics. I suppose getting started, entrepreneurship, it's quite a creative process. How do you work with startups like Alex in terms of bringing out their creativity and their storytelling?
Yeah, well, I think the first question is why? Why are you doing this? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the vision that you're trying to accomplish? Because it all starts from there. And there are various reasons. I find the best reason is you want to solve a problem. You find a problem in the marketplace, you think you have a solution, and you go to solve it. Sometimes people want to make a lot of money. That's their objective. Customers aren't as excited about that as they are about you trying to solve their problems. But it all starts with that because the why is important. And the vision. Now,
so Alex, why?
I wish I could say that it was to do with the fact that we wanted to change the online training industry, and I think we've been pretty innovative. But I was looking at like the last 3 years and looking in particular at the first question that I was sent and kind of what constitutes success. I think it's changed greatly for us and why we've got involved. I think the first reason why I first got involved was I just wanted to have a job where I could be my own boss, where I could decide where I work, when I work, what I work on. I wanted to be independent, and I think my co-founder also wanted to do the same thing.
That's interesting you should talk about independent in terms of being a startup or having your own business. And obviously I work in DCU now, but prior to that I was running an organization for 7 years as the CEO. You're a slave to it. It owns you. Where is the independence in that? Like, is it giving you the autonomy you thought it would give you, or do you just realize you're just beholden to a bigger boss, a whole team of people to whom you're accountable for paying their salaries? A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I think, yeah, I think in many ways in the first 2 years it's been like that, and probably I'm still going through that. I think so. So the company's over 3 years old, but operationally and with a team, we're probably 2 years old, and that's the biggest challenge that I find. I'd say my business partner probably would say the same thing in terms of work-life balance. And there's a certain irony in that I really was craving independence, and yet found myself in a situation where in some ways I was a slave to the business, but that was my choice. I had some agency over my decision. So.
I see Joe nodding furiously. I see the inner coach in you about to come out and identify that question of choice.
Well, and I think you're working on your own vision, and you're working on your own business, and so it's a little bit different because you're not necessarily working on somebody else's objectives, but you're trying to accomplish something. And then I think as the company grows and you get success and you bring on a team, it really takes on another element that you're together trying to create something, and it's really a rewarding thing, but it's very stressful. Takes a lot of time. You'll work more hours than you ever worked. But as you start to get traction in the marketplace and things start to work out, it really is a lot of fun. And I think you have to have fun too. You can't forget the idea that you decided to do this, so you might as well have some fun doing it.
And are you having fun?
Yeah, I think so.
You're based in the digital hub, right?
Yeah, we're based in the digital hub.
I was there for 7 years. I mean, it's a lot of fun down there, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, and it's a really good setup. Yeah, they're doing a great job. No, it's a lot of fun. We get on really well. We're a pretty cohesive team, and we're going into like making a big product plan now for the next few years. And I was saying like to the guys just last week, the most important thing for this making the product plan is that we enjoy it and we have fun, because I think better work will get done and it'll be more fulfilling.
And this is nasty now because I'm about to call up Anya's last slide, not on the screen. But you know that bit she was talking about there, are you at the beginning of the end of the start, or the start of the beginning, or where are you in that? So you're 2 years in. Do you feel you're still in that startup mode where you're creating stuff, or do you feel like you're at that the end of the beginning and you're ready to launch? What was in terms of your measures of success?
Sure. I think we're thinking about that every day. So we're an unfunded startup.
Bootstrapped?
We're totally bootstrapped, yeah. So we've grown purely through sales. That's been really tough. We've maintained, myself and my business partner have maintained like control and independence, and we've got choice. But it's meant that I think we haven't been able to implement some of the things we've wanted to implement if we had like $2 or $3 million and we could make it a really amazing product plan. So we've got a functioning product, we're training loads of clients, but I think we've got a long way to go with the product.
I want to bring Joe back in, but before I do, I'm really particularly personally thrilled with what you've just said. And I could see Joe nodding in respect for bootstrapping. I'm on my way to Cong this weekend for an unconference called Congregation. And I wrote this thing about the economics of innovation and the idea that actually hunger is the thing that drives you forward. And if you had 2 or 3 million, would you actually create anything better? Or is it that constant need to stay lean, to be creative? I look at how Ireland has performed in the recession, and actually we've been at our most creative in the last 10 years when we had very, very little. Compared to all the years we had the boom, we weren't churning out half as many great startups. Is it that hunger that drives you forward, and maybe it's a better thing for your business?
Yeah, it probably was that, yeah. When we had a really low bank balance, or when we took on our first few people and we were struggling to pay them, and literally we didn't know the next month if we could pay them, and that is a good, it's a good motivator, temporarily. Yeah,
it's not long-term sustainable. I'd say, Joe, now from a coaching point of view,
Yeah, it's not something you want to do for the long period of time. But I think the idea of setting the standard of building a great business, which is getting customers and having the customers pay and grow organically, is the way to go if you can do it. And if you do it well, over time, you will attract the investors, because everybody wants a successful company with customers and traction. And I think some companies that receive money too early, they don't really have that struggle. So, they have really nice offices and they're not struggling. So getting money too early can really be a negative thing, believe it or not. But the idea of going to the marketplace with your idea and having customers buy into it and pay you for it and grow your customer base, and then you'll find that investors will be coming to you because they want companies whose ideas proven in the marketplace. I worked for a software company for years that never took any venture money. We built it up to a certain point and ended up selling it for $60 million 10 years later. Now, that was not $1 billion, but it was a great company. It had a company feel, and we didn't have any outside investors telling us what to do. We kind of did what we wanted in the company. Now, anybody's an investor out there, there's certainly room for investment, and I think when you go to scale, if you have to hire more people, the team, work with the product, investment is great. But go as far as you can. You may be able to go all the way building a great company where you're just, and then you control the culture, you don't have all this outside influence. But I say a round of applause for what you're doing.
Yay.
Thank you.
Some of the things that we talked about yesterday, and you've just mentioned it there now,
Oh, you
is
can't
this
bring
idea.
that up. Okay.
Pardon? Not all of it. The idea of a great team around you.
Yes.
Alex, sorry, you've talked a bit about your co-founder. How important has that been for you to have done it with somebody else? You know, I listened to what Anya just said there now, and she said she'd have run back into a burning building startup with Mark Little in a heartbeat. Do you guys, what's your relationship like with your co-founder? Have you complementary skills, or are you very similar? How does that work, and how has that added to the experience, not doing it completely on your own?
Sure. So I can confidently say I would never have done this business on my own, or I don't think I would have started a business. It's my first business, so we're very different people. He's very much an analyst. He's really good at analyzing problems. That's definitely not my strength. I'm more like to work with people and to build teams and to think about a vision. I think that's really good that we're different. We're also, and I hope he won't mind me saying this publicly, we're not, and it's important to me, we're not the best of friends either. And I was quite wary of maybe a year or two after, of like bringing a few friends into the business, because I think that can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge to deal with that. But yeah, no, it's critical. And just having that person who you can call at 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening saying, I've got a really, really bad day and this is why it is. And, you know, having someone who can empathize with that situation is important.
That's really interesting. That's not something I've heard very commonly. You know, this is someone who's not necessarily someone I would call a friend. It's a business partner. It's a business relationship. And you're in that same boat. I mean, you're friendly. You're not
but
enemies.
We're not like,
you're not best buddies.
She's not my best friend.
Yeah,
you know, so.
That's really, it's really interesting and probably really healthy, Joe. What do you think?
Yeah, well, what he said, that they have complementary skills, that's really the most important thing, I think, in building a team. Bringing out people on board that have different skills that you don't have. So together, you know, you bring those skills to the marketplace. Sometimes going in with your best friend, you lose that friend. And so you have to be very careful. If the business doesn't succeed, you might lose your best friend. So in building the team, I think you really want to look at who are the right people to do the things we need to do, like build the product, sell the product, watch the books. All of those things are important too. And at some point, I'd maybe talk a little bit about other members of the team that you don't think about, because you have your team internally, but there's also other support people that are very helpful, like your accountant, like your attorney, like investors, and like coaches and mentors. And I just want to can I tell a little story?
Please.
My favorite Silicon Valley story is about the time my wife and I were taking a walk. We lived in Palo Alto, and we were taking a walk, and we went to a little garden, and it was about dusk, and there were two guys sitting on a bench. They were the only people in the garden. And I looked as we got closer, and one of the guys was Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. And I said, wow, that's Mark Zuckerberg. And my wife said, yeah, the other guy. The other guy was Steve Jobs. There they are sitting on a bench, just the two of them. Sounds like a joke, but it's not. And so my wife and I were like stunned, and we didn't want to, bother him or anything. So we walked away, and we then saw him walking home because Steve lived in the neighborhood. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I checked the news reports. I thought, is Apple buying Facebook? Well, after Steve passed away, there was a book written about him. And it turns out that Steve Jobs was mentoring Mark Zuckerberg behind the scenes because he thought he was trying to build a great company and he wanted to help him. And he was doing it because when he was building Apple, he had people who were mentoring and coaching him. And so the idea is that you have your internal team, but there are a lot of other people that can help, like mentors. And can you imagine having Steve Jobs as your mentor? And it kind of worked out for Mark because I think he's built a pretty successful company and I think he's worth $70 billion. So, but think about those external people, not just your internal team.
So there's two things I want to ask on that. You
Yeah.
said he's built a successful company.
Yes.
And I went, because it's worth 70, whatever, million, billion. I'll come back to the measure of success in a minute. But the other question, I just have to say that out loud so I don't forget. The other question I want to ask, do you have a mentor?
I do, yeah. I have a few kind of mentor type figures and people who help me with maybe different things. Not all related to purely business, you know.
Great.
Yeah.
And where did you find them?
Two of them I just wrote to them. Oh, wow. And I think one of them I wrote a letter, and the other person I just emailed. I said I just want to get together for a coffee and just told them about what I was doing. This was before I was involved in this business. And then another was just through a network, just through I think a friend of a family friend. And they've been really helpful. Just even, again, just picking up the phone, and they've got decades of experience.
Wow.
And my partner also has a few mentors as well. So.
May I ask a follow-up? So how do you work with them? Do you have a set schedule, or do you just call them when you need help? Or?
Sure, yeah. I think it's very different. Each one is a very different relationship. I probably speak to them. I probably meet them about 3-4 times a year. I'm not living in Dublin at the moment. I'm living in London currently. So it's a bit tougher, but yeah, I'd be in touch with them probably at least every 3 months. There's no structure. There probably should be structure. But most of the time it's just I meet them for a coffee and there's not really a fixed agenda. And we just talk, and I get so much from that. And I've probably had some of those figures in my life for maybe 8, probably when I was in university, like some of you guys. And yeah, you look at the number of times you meet those people, and over that 8 years, and I think I've learned a lot from them. So
That's great.
Yeah.
How does it feel like to have two people asking you questions at the same time? I'm glad we put you in the middle.
Yeah. Joe, would you like?
Sorry about that.
So now back to Joe's question, which kind of ties in with that in terms of the measure of success. What is it you guys are aiming for? Have you guys defined that for yourselves? One of the things that has kind of always come up with me, and we see this with a lot of accelerator programs, there's always investment day, like that's the measure of success, rather than I want a huge customer day as a measure of success. What are the long-term measures of success for you guys? Have you worked that out for yourselves, personal and professionally, and then the shorter ones, I suppose, that you're building up to get there? Have you got a clear plan for that?
Nope.
I'm sure your mentor has suggested you probably should.
Yeah, indeed, yes. No, so the honest answer is we don't have a clear plan, but we've got lots of things that we're really focused on. So yeah, and they're very different things. A lot of them are to do with the product. A lot of them are to do with cash, just having enough cash in the business for X number of months or years. Looking at the size of the team. I think if you're to take like the next year, I think we want to put together a really comprehensive product plan, implemented from say January onwards. We want to try and internationalize the product by the end of the year, so have at least one other language for all of our training. We probably want to make some more training as well in different products. And then personal success, I'm probably still working that out as well. But my definition of personal success has changed dramatically since I started the company, because when I started it, I thought a lot about, yes, I wanted independence, but to be blunt, yes, I can hopefully earn a lot of money from this, and I don't think that's what I'm really after as much. Obviously, I want to make a good living from it, but I more see success as how is the team developing and how am I developing, and I see work and this startup as this medium or like this opportunity for myself to develop myself, so that maybe the next venture, or maybe I'll leave business and go into something else, that I'll be much better informed. I don't know if that's not very tangible, but it's certainly where I am right now in my business.
I don't think it has to be tangible. I think it has to be real to you,
Right.
and it obviously is. And there is a clear purpose there. Joe, you and I discussed yesterday that you kept telling me he's really old. He's not really old. You've had different measures of success
Yes.
in different forms of career, and we talked a little bit about that, and that it's a fluid thing.
Right. Yeah, when it comes to career success and personal success, hopefully at some point they dovetail, but when you start out in your career, you're a student and you're looking for your first job, and you're really learning your craft and your trade, and you want to go in and you want to be successful, and you're more of an individual contributor. I was a salesperson, so I was measured by my sales quota, so I was focused on that. When you then become a team leader and a manager, your measure of success becomes the success of the team, as you were saying. And as Alex, when you're the CEO of a company, then it becomes the measure of the success of the company. As you move into things like teaching and coaching and mentoring, the success is really measured by the success of your students and the people that you mentor. How successful are they? And then over time, you really start looking at sort of your contribution to the community, and as we like to say in Silicon Valley, changing the world. But seriously, that you are having an impact on the community. But it does shift in your career as your career shifts, because you're in some cases you're measured different ways, and so you have to. But it's really fun when you're managing a team, and the team success makes the whole organization successful. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, definitely.
And I think too, as personal responsibilities change, all of those kind of
Right.
things, you're under different pressures. I think bootstrapping
There's personal
when
things
you're
that
first
happen.
time out
Yep.
is probably, I wouldn't say easier, it's because it's never easy, but it's more doable when you don't have a mortgage hanging over your head.
Right.
And then, as you go through life,
Right.
you probably have different approaches, and everyone will say, never spend your own money, spend someone else's.
Right.
That's probably because you don't have any. The more money, the older you get, the less money you have, because you generally owe whatever you have to somebody else. So there's a possibility for some bootstrapping maybe earlier on. But as I say, getting all that learning out of it, and learning how to build a great team.
Yeah, and another point that Alex made was maybe this isn't the one, but you're going to learn some serious lessons in this one that you'll take to the next one. And sometimes the best lessons are the hardest ones, the ones where there was failure, where you didn't succeed. And those are the lessons you really learn, because nobody succeeds at everything. And so, I hope this is your successful venture, but I would assume that moving forward, you've learned some lessons that are coming with you no matter what you do.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
I think it's one of the things when I look at startups generally, and I've seen a lot of young people, and I know I say this respectfully to all the young people in the room, you go out and you get involved in a startup first, and you're not used to that whole working for the man. And actually the people you're working for, they're not working off a role model, because they don't have a map for that either.
Right.
So to meet a founder of a startup who is actually concentrating on the important elements of what it is to be a good line manager, what it is to be a good leader, a good manager of people, that in itself makes you quite stand out in my experience, talking to startups. I think we have 2 minutes left, so if you would like one last huge shout out plug for Kubicle, as I say, Kubicle again. So there you go.
Great, thank you. Can I maybe ask you a question? How many of you guys are using Excel or Tableau or any of those kinds of products in your work? Okay. And how many of you, it's a hard question to answer publicly, how many of you would describe yourselves as good users, competent users of those kinds of products? Okay, right. Okay.
I think you have a market.
Okay, great. So if you email me after today's conference, I'm happy to give you guys free licenses to our training. So we're mainly training in...
Big applause.
People love free stuff.
So my email, it's really simple. It's just alex@kubicle.com, Kubicle with a K.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm just not going to let you off the stage just yet, because Joe, you and I said I would remind you to say this, just because I'm up here. And I should mention that you were an advisor to Reboot Career Accelerator for Women.
Yes.
You noticed something about our lineup today. Could you tell us what you observed casually off your own volition?
I'm happy to see all the women entrepreneurs who are presenting and in the audience. It's fantastic, and that's all I can say. I want to see more next year and more.
Guys, thank you both very much for your input for this session.
You.
And we are still bang on time. So thank you both very much. Well done.
Thanks, guys.